74 Illinois sheriff's departments will not be enforcing a state gun control ban. They've announced it was recently signed into law by Governor J.B. Pritzker. The ban is on assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and switches. And now dozens of sheriff's offices say they would not check for compliance with the law or arrest offenders of the law. But the governor has vowed to ensure those members of law enforcement who fail to do their job won't be in their job, he says. The sheriffs are challenging the law, saying they are doing it to protect the Second Amendment.
Also, while speaking at a Martin Luther King Jr. event in Washington yesterday, President Biden took a jab at Second Amendment supporters and Republicans. Take a listen.
I love my right-wing friends who talk about the tree of liberty is water with the blood of patriots. If you need to work about taking on the federal government, you need some F-15s. You don't need an AR-15. I'm serious. Think about it.
I'm serious. Think about it. He loves to say that, right? Biden there mocking a quote from Thomas Jefferson. The president also said so-called assault weapons serve no, quote, social redeeming value. And in July of 2021, during a White House speech to outline a plan to combat gun violence, the president said something similar.
You need to have weapons to take on the government. You need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons.
Oh, nuclear weapons. Now, during that same speech, he also falsely claimed that there have always been limits on the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment, from the day it was passed, limited the type of people who could own a gun and what type of weapon you could own. You couldn't buy a cannon.
Now, that's a lie, of course. It's demonstrably false, and it's pretty on brand, though, for Joe Biden. Throwing out lies and bashing your political rivals on a national holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. And what's worse, he did it 2 days in a row. This was on Sunday.
I may be a practicing Catholic. We used to go to 7:30 Mass every morning in high school and then in college before I went to the black church. Not a joke.
There's no record of that, and you know he's lying when he says not a joke. Joining us now for more on Joe Biden and some insight on the Second Amendment is the editor at bearingarms.com, Cam Edwards. Great to see you, Cam.
Hey, John. Thanks so much for the invite.
All right, so Joe Biden has no problem taking a swipe at Second Amendment supporters again, talking about nuclear weapons and F-15s. But when he talks about limits to the Second Amendment, what on earth is he talking about?
Well, I think he's making it up, quite frankly, John. He has said that the Second Amendment didn't give people the right to own a cannon. Well, yeah, it did. I mean, he said that the Second Amendment limited who could own firearms. Yeah, to we the people, right? I think what we're seeing here is an attempt by Biden and certainly a lot of other Democrats, including Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, to deny that our fundamental right to keep and bear arms is a right whatsoever. How can you infringe on something that isn't a right? Now, that may make them feel better, but at the end of the day, John, we still have the Democratic Party who are standing, athwart history and trying to criminalize the exercise of a fundamental civil right.
That's exactly what they're doing. We could also talk, too, about these 74 Illinois sheriff's offices that will not enforce this gun ban. We saw something similar play out in Connecticut a few years ago when they enacted a law to ban some of these extended magazines. The sheriffs who are elected by their people, this is a constitutional office in most cases, these sheriffs understand that they are beholden to their voters. It's not the other way around, and that's how the feds seem to think about the issue, the Second Amendment.
I think that's right. And listen, I think the Democrats are beholden to their base. I think they're beholden to the gun control lobby, but unfortunately that puts them on the wrong side of history here because the Supreme Court has made it clear that we are talking about a fundamental individual right to both keep and bear arms for self-defense. And when you now try to get in the way of that, as they're doing in Illinois by banning commonly owned firearms, by banning commonly owned magazines, or some of the bills that we're even seeing coming down the pike in places like Massachusetts and Washington State, there is absolutely no attempt to even recognize that right. They're trying to infringe on it. I think they're trying to pick a fight with the Supreme Court, one that they know they're likely going to lose, but then they can, blame activist judges for their truly unwillingness to address violent crime. They want to keep going after legal gun owners as if that's the way to make this a safer country. What they need to be doing is focusing on violent criminals.
In addition to that, too, we have the ATF going after a lot of legal gun owners right now. Talk to us, Cam, about what's happening with these handgun braces. I'm not all that familiar with this stuff, but they're often used by people who are handicapped in some other way. They can't use a regular firearm. And now the ATF wants everyone to register their weapons. What's going on?
Yeah, I gotta say, this is really confusing, John. And I think it's confusing by design. So, as you noted, there's somewhere between 10 and 40 million owners of these pistol stabilizing braces in this country. And the ATF has repeatedly said these items are perfectly fine to own. Now, however, the ATF has come back and said, well, actually, chances are, we can't tell you explicitly, but chances are if you own one of these braces and it's attached to a firearm, we could consider that to be a short-barreled rifle, which falls under the provisions of the National Firearms Act. And if you don't register that firearm, you could be looking at 10 years in federal prison or a $250,000 fine. There is really no easy way to tell whether or not the item that you own, the brace that you own, would fit under the ATF's definition. There's a lot of vague and fuzzy middle ground here. Again, I think by design, because I think the goal is to try to get as many of these pistol brace owners as possible to either get rid of those items or to register them with the federal government.
Right. And what we've seen with these solvent traps, you know, a lot of people use solvent traps to collect the oil from cleaning their guns. Some people have used them for nefarious purposes or to use them to make suppressors. But then everyone who has a solvent trap is now subject to investigation. We've seen the ATF show up unannounced at people's homes demanding information about this. It's scary stuff. It's certainly an infringement on our constitutional rights. And we'll see where this winds up, Cam, because I believe what you believe, this is headed to the courts ultimately, but it's going to be a long legal battle for gun owners. Great to see you, Cam Edwards, editor at BearingArms.com. Thank you for your time as always, Cam.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson. Your retirement funds are being threatened with even more losses from record inflation, recession, and skyrocketing interest rates. Fortunately, the highly trained specialists at American Hartford Gold can show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your portfolio with physical gold and silver. If you call them right now as a special offer, they will give you a free gold coin on your first qualifying order, so don't wait. Call 866-935-4309. That's 866-935-4309 or text Newsmax to 65532. That's Newsmax to 65532.